Hi students, welcome back to the video lecture on software engineering. So we are discussing the concept coping with change. So what does that mean? That means how we can accommodate the changing needs of the customer with the reduced cost. So for that reduced cost of rework, we have already discussed two methods. The first one is the prototyping model, where we can anticipate the changes, and the second method is the incremental delivery, where we can tolerate the change. That means for the change tolerance we have the incremental model, and for the change anticipation we have the prototyping model. So today's class we are going to discuss another important model, that is spiral model. So in case of spiral model, we can analyze the risk. Whatever the risk, we know that the risk will happen in our future. So we can analyze the risk and we can identify the risk and we can resolve that risk. So the spiral model is the combination of both the prototype model and the incremental model. So let's have a discuss on spiral model. So for the risk analysis purpose, in 1986, the Berry Boehm has described a model, that is the spiral model. So the spiral model was introduced by Berry Boehm in 1986, and this spiral model is used for identifying and resolving risk. So we can resolve the risk that we are expecting that these problems or this risk will be arise after delivering the product to the customer. So by using the spiral model we can resolve those risks. So how we are going to resolve that risk? By adopting an iterative approach. So in general we can say by using the spiral model we can handle a large amount of risk, and actually in the spiral model there are four main phases. Those are, the first one is planning, the second one is risk analysis, the third one is development and test, or you can say development and testing, and the fourth one is evolution. So basically we have four phases in the spiral model. In the first phase we are going to plan something. That means in the plan phase we will define the problem, what actually the problem is and what are the solution for that problem. So by getting some solution for the particular problem, then we will go for risk analysis. There we will put all the solution to the risk analysis phase. Then among the solution we will find the best solution for that problem. Then by getting the best solution for that problem we will go for development and testing. There we will actually develop and test our software. Then after development and testing we will go for evaluation. So evaluation means what? We will provide that software or that service or that product to the customer will use it, the customer will evaluate it, and if the customer will not satisfied with our product, then the customer will ask for some changes. Then after getting the review from the customer, we will go for planning the next phase. So then we will again go to the planning, then again we will go for risk analysis, again to the development and testing, and next for the evaluation. So why this named as spiral? Because the spiral model looks like a spiral. So without having a sequence of steps, we are going to repeat these four phases. That means these are the iterative phases. We are going to repeat them until and unless our customer is satisfied with our product. So let's see what is that spiral model. Let's draw the diagram for the spiral model. So let's start explaining the spiral model. So by looking at the figure may look very difficult, but it is actually quite easy. So don't get confused by looking at the figure. Just draw the figure phase by phase. It will be very easy. So look at the figure carefully. So if you look into the figure, there will be 4 quadrants. This is our first quadrant, this is our second quadrant, this is our third, and this is our fourth. If you consider this as the origin, then we have 4 quadrants, 1, 2, 3 and 4. I repeat, you just look this figure very carefully. So what are the phases we have in the spiral model? We have 4 phases. The first phase is planning, or we can say the first phase we are going to determine the objectives, the alternatives and the constraints. So we have already discussed this. In the requirement illustration phase or in the requirement engineering process, we have to specify the service, the functions and the constraints. The service and the functions are the functional requirements, the constraints are the non-functional requirements. So in the spiral model, for each and every phase, for the requirement engineering process, for the design process, for the testing, for the evaluation, each and every phase, we are going to determine the objectives, the constraints and the alternatives. So what is that alternative means? That means we are going to face some problems when we are going to review that what actually my customer requires from the software, what actually the functions and the service my software is going to provide. So when we are going for review, we will face some problem. That means there must be a problem. For that problem we are going to develop the software or we are going to solve that problem. So when we are going for reviewing that problem, then we can encounter with different types of solution. So among this solution, which one is the best solution? That we have to identify. So in the first quadrant, we are going to determine the objectives. What is actually my objective for what I am going to work on? What are the alternatives? That means to get that objective, what are the alternatives available with me? And what are the constraints? What are the non-functional requirements? That we are going to determine in the first quadrant. So let's start from the requirement illustration. After reviewing the problem, we will have some alternatives with us. Then we will give those alternatives. Suppose we find 20 number of solution for a problem. Then we are not going to apply 20 number of solution. We have to apply the best solution for that problem. So we will give those 20 number of solution to the second phase, that is our identify and resolve risk. That means here we are going to provide those 20 number of solution to the second phase, that is identify and resolve risks. So we have 20 number of solution. We are going to identify the risk. Which solution has the minimal of risk? So we have to identify that. After getting that solution, that means which one is the best solution for that problem? Which solution has some minimal number of risk, or which solution has no risk? So what actually I am saying? I am saying that we have to identify that particular solution which will not create any problem or which have no risk at all, or which will not create problem in our future. So we have to adopt that solution. So by putting those 20 solution into the second phase, there we will go for risk analysis. We will analyze each and individual solution. Then we will get only one solution which has either the minimal risk or which has no risk. Then we will develop the prototype for that. So what is that prototype? The prototype means the demo version that we are not going to give to the customer, that we are developing the prototype for our understanding purpose. to make the customer better understand about the software, there we need to develop the prototype. So after getting the base solution, we will go for develop the prototype. So in the second phase, result risk. Result risk means what? Result risk means after finding the solution which has the minimal risk, we are going to develop the prototype for that solution. So that is what actually the result risk means. Then after developing the prototype, we will go for the development and testing. The third phase is what? Develop and verify, or we can say the development and testing. Verify means what? We are going to test our product, that what actually we have developed the product, that actually operating successfully or not, that actually operating properly or not. So there we need to give the prototype 1 to the develop and verify phase. So that is what concept of operation. So after the develop and verify, we have the requirement plan. So after giving that prototype to the customer, we have a requirement plan that will satisfy the customer requirement. If the customer will not satisfied with our plan or with our requirement document, then again we will go for the first phase, that is determine object. Then again we will go for risk analysis. That means again we are going for finding the best solution, and for that best solution we are going to develop the prototype 2. Here we have already developed the prototype 1, the demo version 1. Then we will go for developing the prototype 2. Then we will develop, that means here we are actually designing the prototype, but where we are coding that prototype or where we are testing that prototype, that is in the third quadrant. So after developing the prototype 2, we have the requirement validation. That means that requirement validation is our final requirement document, that is the software requirement document. So after getting the requirement validation document, that means that has been already verified from the customer, then we will go for planning the next phase, that is what in the fourth quadrant. Here we have to plan the next phase. So after the requirement analysis or after getting the SRS document with us, our next phase is what? The next phase is the design phase. So that is the development plan. So in the development plan, we have to design and develop. That means initially we have to develop the initial units, then we will go for developing the prototype for that, then we will go for integrating them, then after integrating them we will get a system, then after getting the system we will go for system testing, acceptance testing and all. So let's see how it is going to work. So in the development plan, that means we are planning for the development plan, then we will go to here, and here is the first quadrant. So we have to determine the objectives, the alternatives and the constraints for the development plan. Here we are concerned about the requirement plan, but in this phase we are concerned about the development plan. So after getting the objectives, the alternatives and the constraints, we will give those alternatives to the second phase. There we have to analyze the risk. Whatever alternatives we have, we will analyze the risk. That means which alternative has no risk or has some minimal risk. Then after getting that alternative, we will go for developing the prototype 3. For the prototype 1, 2 has been developed for requirement. Then for prototype 3 will be developed for the design. Then after getting the prototype 3, we will go for product design. That means we are going to develop the system architecture, the context level graph or the system diagram or whatever it may be, we are going to develop the product design. Then after getting the product design, again we have to validate that product design. That means we have to verify and validate. So what actually that third step means? Develop and verify. So after getting the product design, we will go for design, verification and validation. In the previous phase, we have the requirement validation. Then in the next phase, we have the design and design verification and validation. So after getting the validated design, then what we are going for? We will go for integrating them. So that is the next phase. Plan for the next phase, that is integration and test plan. So in the integration and test plan, again we will go for determining the objectives, the alternatives and the constraints here. Then after getting the alternatives or after getting the solution for integration and test plan, then we will go for risk analysis, that means here. Then after analyze the risk and after getting the best solution, then we will go for operational prototype. So what is that prototype 1, 2, 3 and why it is operational prototype? Because these are after this one is for requirement analysis, this one for the requirement validation, this one for design, but here after integration and test plan we don't have left with any other phase. So what is that prototype? That is the final demo version. So what actually we are going to give to the customer? The final prototype that we will give to the customer will review it, and after developing the final prototype, that means the operational prototype, we will have the detailed design with us. So after getting the detailed design, we will go for coding, that means the actual implementation of the software will start from here. So after implementing our software or after implementing our system, we will go for unit test. So what is that unit test means? That means we are going for writing the code for individual unit, then the individual unit will get tested, then we will go for integration test, that means we have to combine individual unit to have some subsystem. Then we will test those subsystem and then we will have our system. After combining the subsystem together, we will have our system. So integration test means what? That means system testing. Unit each and individual unit will get integrated to have a subsystem. The subsystem will get tested. Then each and every subsystem will get integrated to have a system. Then the system will get tested, that is the integration testing. Once my system get tested, that means we know that our system will get tested by some testing engineers. Then after the system testing, we will confirm that our system is working properly. Then we will go for providing the system to the friendly customers that we have in our company. Those are the acceptance testing. And in that acceptance testing, we have two more testing, that is alpha testing and beta testing. So alpha testing will be held by the friendly customers, those are present in our company, and the beta testing will be held by the actual end user of the product. So after the acceptance testing, once my software is ready and my software is accepted by the customer, we will go for providing the service to the customer. So that is what we have, service. So after the acceptance testing, our software is now ready. Our software is going to provide the service. Then we have nothing. We have no phase left. So we will not plan for further phases. The software will enter to the evaluation phase, that is the maintenance phase. So this is what the spiral model is. You can better understand this by preparing the book and all. So you just repeat this video for 2 to 3 times, then you will get a better knowledge about the spiral model. So you just remember for each and every phase, the first phase of the software process is requirement engineering. So for the requirement engineering, we are going to repeat 4 steps, that is the determine objectives, alternatives and constraint. Then we will go for identifying and risk resolve. Then we will go for develop and verify. Then we will go for planning the next phase, that is design. And for the design, again we have to determine the objectives, the alternatives, the constraints. Then we will go for risk analysis and resolve the risk. Then we will go for develop and verify. Then we will go for planning the next phase, that is our testing. That means the integration or unit testing, system testing. Then after that we will have our operational prototype with us. Then we will go for detailed design. There actually we are implementing our system. So before that we are actually developing the prototype. That means we are developing the demo versions for the customer for better understanding the software. But after the integration or operational prototype, we will implementing our software in a real case. That what we are going to provide to the customer. So there we will go for detailed design, we will go for unit test, then we will integrate the unit and we will have some subsystem, then we will test the subsystem, then we will integrate the subsystem to have a system, then we will go for system testing or integration testing, then we will go for acceptance testing. Then after my customer accepts my software, then we will go for providing the service and function to the customer, and my software will enter to the evaluation phase. So this is the fundamentals of the spiral model. We can use the spiral model in a bigger project where there are possibilities of more risk. So we can analyze those risks and we can resolve those risks by developing some different kinds of prototype. So that is what the spiral model is. So now we have completed the software process. In the next class, we will go for the agile method. Have a nice day. Thank you.